Thank you, Sole. Thank you, Giancarlo, for the question. Now let's move on the next session. The next session will showcase several experiences of youth engagement and youth activism. Some of them we have already seen, but we will go a little bit in deep on that. So I will also ask all the participants to remain, because it will be a nice like chance to exchange like best practice and so on. I will give suddenly the word to Asia and the girl from ReThinking Climate. So thanks again for being here. Now let's show what ReThinking Climate is more in deep.
So so ReThinking Climate, first of all, is an ongoing project. So what we have are, so Lena shared the link on YouTube, and what we have is a set of episodes. We've each interviewed some specialists and some experts. And what we've been trying to do is sort of go a little bit in depth in what each person does. For instance, I'll make an example of the episodes of the experts that I've interviewed. Our first interview was with Paola Fiore. Paola Fiore, you've probably maybe heard her speak. She was part of the Climate Social Forum. She's an expert as an environmental. She's the national volunteer coordinator for the Climate Reality Project. And we identified and investigated a little bit on the word of activism. So who's an activist? Who's a climate activist? Why would someone define themselves an activist? What makes someone an activist per se as well from the beginning? So you can pinpoint the term to yourself, but in the overview, who truly is an activist? And that's what we're trying to do with the experts, is sort of unravel many of, again, what I was trying to say before, many of the conversations that we have and the terms used, and make them what are more, first of all, inclusive, like Amy was saying, more simple at times as well, but also ask questions that, and that's something I think Amy and Lena can give their personal interest of why they were taking, why are they part of the project. So I'll give my personal. So as someone who's done communication, I was initially born as a journalist, and I just like to ask questions. That's what I find, it's really a passion of mine, just because I always wonder that we can make grand statements, experts can make grand statements, but I just want to really understand in the practical sense of the statement what is being done here. And I've been part of spreading awareness a little bit, both on campus in the schools that I've been in and outside since I was probably in middle school. And I've always noticed how you can spread awareness, you can go out there, you can speak to the public, but there's no resonance on the back. I'm really happy to see that this is happening now. Like Amy again was saying, with the youth, and they've been listened, they've been part of, we sort of have to inform ourselves and tell our previous generation, hey, I'm sorry, this is not going too well, so maybe we should. But that hasn't always been the case. And again, that's trying something that we're trying to do. We're thinking climate. We wish for this to become more of a research project. We have a few things in plan for next year. Again, I think Sol, you wrote about collaborating with an NGO to help calculate carbon footprint. I think that's really good idea that we could try it out as well. So I wonder, the questions that, for instance, the carbon footprint ask you, are they really measuring anything substantial? Could one calculator be better than another? And this is, I find that people, when I say this, feel like I'm pessimistic. No, I'm just trying to understand what is the issue, because if we keep going with the wrong problem to try to find solutions, we will never find a solution. We will just keep using. So I appreciate your support here. We will just keep going with the same conversation over and over again, and we won't be listened. And that's something that gets me frustrated and angered a lot. And I really appreciate that Amy and Lena are much more calmer people than I am. So I think our three of us are quite a good match. But I guess that ReThinking Climate tries to do that in different ways. We have all three different backgrounds, and I think that brings a lot to the table. And yeah, I think Amy and Lena can add more to it, but that's what I feel as a project. That's why we call it a project, because it is quite something that will develop in time, and we might come out with statistics. That's something I like to do a lot. The sustainability communication, scientific communication, it's still a niche now. I think one of my favorite professional experts in the field is Catherine Hayhoe. I'm not sure if you've heard of her, but she's one of the greatest leaders in this field. And she tries to understand why somebody doesn't truly believe in climate change, although they believe in science. And by answering that question, you still investigate why terms are being used, why our misunderstanding of the term sustainability, for instance, but we overuse it in the media, especially the simplification, because it's needed, it's useful to a certain extent. But if we just change the way we simplify, possibly the way we talk about some topics, and we ask experts of the energy company, for instance, so you said this, you said that, okay, on a practical again level, what are you trying to do and what could we improve? And again, I'm not trying to pinpoint anybody and tell them you're doing something wrong. This is not about finger pointing. But again, if we don't understand what the problem is and what we're trying to do, even us in the movement, it's just going to be harder for us to continue. And I've been so many years in trying to understand why we're not going anywhere. We've seen so many good solutions. I'm just working to see even better. And I think that's what the mission we were thinking climate. So Amy, Lena, whoever wants to continue.
Yeah, I think the learning how to communicate something so complex as climate change is such a big issue. And I'm not at all saying that I have all of the solutions yet, because we're still learning through this project. But I think by interviewing so many different people, so one of my first episodes that I recorded was with a writer who's named Helen Moffat. And so when Cape Town went through these severe droughts and water restrictions, she wasn't necessarily involved in the climate movement before, but she started sharing all of her experiences of how she was saving water. They were quite extreme ways, and some were very funny and things, but it showed me that it needs to be this balance of expressing the cold hard facts of what the climate movement or the climate crisis is. And I think the facts are so important, but also I think people become numbed to just the facts. We are constantly being fed all of this information and all of these numbers and statistics about how terrible the situation is and about how many years we have to fix it. And I think those are all important once you care about the issue, but getting someone to care about the issue requires a far more emotional connection. And I think it can feel so irritating to have to almost oversimplify the issue at first or personalize the issue. But it's so necessary to get someone to care initially before they can change their behavior, whether that's a politician or just an ordinary person. And I think, yeah, it is so hard. And I definitely am still learning about this, but also the fact that the three of us live in different countries and can hopefully bring different perspectives. And those perspectives are also from the experts around the world. So I'm excited to share a lot of people from South Africa, because it can also show that even though we're very far away from Europe and America and the countries which are spoken about too, and even though we're a very impoverished country in general, there's also so much innovation and so many great ideas coming from a country you might not expect it from. And I think that's really exciting to show very diverse perspectives. And I think that'll also bring diverse solutions and innovative solutions. Yeah, if Lena wants to discuss some of that as well.
Thanks, Amy and Asia. Yeah, so I personally come from an environmental science background, and I think climate science is really fascinating, and there's also a lot of important questions to ask. For example, in this field, for example, what models are we basing our future projections on? Which factors are being considered? And I think in general, with science in general, but also with climate science, this information is not necessarily available to everyone, nor being really highlighted in the news. So I think for me, this project is just about, alongside, bringing in new perspectives and talking to a diverse range of people, maybe making information more accessible to people that they wouldn't maybe have access before, or yeah, so basically to bring maybe some things to their attention and kind of bring science out of the ivory tower. But yeah, first and foremost, bringing a lot of different perspectives and also being inspired by each other, because I think there's a lot of professionals and you can have a very diverse range of professions and still be contributing to improving the conditions that the environment is in now and contributing to the climate crisis. But it's also about more than fossil fuels and energy. It's about preserving the oceans. It's about biodiversity. It's about people. It's about sustainable development and about parallel and united narratives of both sustainable development and protecting the environment. So yeah, I think most of all, it's about perspectives, and I think Asia and Amy have both highlighted that as well.
Thank you, Asia, Amy, Moses, and Lena. So if you want to also add other things, we have a little bit time, so we can have, like, I don't know if Asia want to add something about rethinking climate, and maybe we can have a round of questions to your experience.
Yes, I think I wanted to share a brief anecdote about the way I see this. I was watching at the European Parliament a plenary session, and I was wondering how sometimes you hear just MEPs, members of the European Parliament, just oh, Lena has to leave, so thank you, Lena, for being with us today.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. Sorry, I unfortunately have to leave, but thanks everyone. And yeah, Asia and Amy will answer the remaining questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I will briefly just keep this short, but I was wondering how some MEPs just were staying very undemocratic and making statements that's just out of this planet. But then I was wondering that much of the democratic conversation comes with having somebody just shoving in your face things that are not right. And although we're trying to resolve that side, because some things not just be said when you discriminate and when you push out of the conversation, just some communities that's not being part of the conversation. But just realizing how the conversation is moving forward and being realistic of that helps us improve inclusiveness, helps us improve also the way we talk about something, and help us get our personal scheme of things. And I think it could also help, as Amy was saying, the emotional attachment. If I feel like my contribution has any value, because my community can also take part in this, because it will affect me, whether it's now, whether it's tomorrow, and whether it's 20 years from now, because maybe I've been so lucky that for 30 years I've never seen anything happen to me, and then suddenly my house is flooded. You know, things like this kind. It's also realizing where we stand. We are privileged, great. Can we contribute? Of course. And if we're not privileged, well, or if we are privileged, how can we help those that have been affected the most now? And again, it's all start by knowing how do we know what we know? I think that's one of the greatest questions. And I always relate the way I learn about topics and learn about the climate movement in the sense, how much that's what I know and the way I think influence the way then I will apply what I've learned. It's a little bit of complex, but it sort of gives, I hope, a little bit of background of why this exists. So thank you. Domenico, back to you.
Thank you very much. So now the floor for questions. If there are some questions from the girls from ReThinking Climate. Actually, I have one that is very trivial, but how, like, you foster, you are from very, very different countries all around the world, and how you foster the collaboration. So I think that it's not easy to also use this kind of instrument and then turn into like something like a communication, we can say business or like activity. And how do you coordinate? How do you use the new medias? We before saw the Slacktivism from Umberto. How do you find a way to coordinate so distance in the world?
Amy, maybe you want to answer that?
Yeah. I think the most interesting thing for me is that it really hasn't been that difficult. And I guess maybe because we are living in this time of COVID, but so much of our communication is online, that honestly coordinating this is not very different to having conversations with people who live within my country. So I guess from a practical point of view, we're in fairly similar time zones, which makes it easier. But it's something that I've realized in the last while is like, with all of the options we have with WhatsApp and Skype and Zoom and all of these communication tools, it's easier than it's ever been to connect to people around the world. I find it crazy myself that it has been so seamless getting to know the other two when we haven't met and really live in very different situations. But I guess it also shows how much commonality we all have, even when you come from very different backgrounds. And I think it's so exciting that even though we live so far apart and we have very different family lives and social situations, there's this common goal. And hopefully that can also inspire some people to show that no matter where you are or who you are, you can come together for this common goal of helping climate change and climate change communication and learning about this. Because yeah, with the tools today, it is really easier than ever.
I agree that technology has helped us a lot, but I also think that the fact that we found thinking in similar ways and providing feedback to each other about what we expected from this, because the three of us never wanted this to be another climate podcast. This is not just the idea is that this could turn into something more. It started as a podcast because, for those listening, it was born in October this year. So it's very young, and we've actually achieved more than what we're expecting to achieve. So I think that goes to all three of us, and it's been really nice to collaborate with people who are my friends. So I was very lucky again to meet Lena at the beginning of this year for work, and I was actually assigned to Amy because we were matched during a training, and it was, I think, just, you know, things happen for a reason, and this was very beautiful. But it's also finding again the compromise that we didn't want this to be again talking about climate again. We are doing that, but the way we do it should provide more understanding of where we're headed. And for now, we are looking forward to channel it in the best way. We've done podcasts now, we've tested out our skills, we've tested out our practices, and I think that's something that anybody could do. Just let yourself out there. So Amy knows I really don't have any filters because I got a little tired of always having to hold back about what I say, what I do. Again, when you interview somebody for a newspaper, and I'm sure my fellow journalists out there will know, you are always a little bit binding to what the newspaper wants to say or with a question you can ask people. And again, I'm not confrontational here, but if I do have a legit question that I think could be backed up with some facts and I'm just curious, curiosity can get you very far. I would like to break that barrier a little bit. And so I really don't feel like we should stopped by anything. And I think that this is what I've been trying to do. And I believe, if I can say this, Amy, a little bit, you were reluctant at the beginning, you know, a live session, our first I guess, episode, we had just published the episode on Friday, and then on Saturday we had a live session on Facebook, and we just threw ourselves out there. It was fun. It was a conversation between the three of us. We are providing our personal experience. And yes, of course we can, and I will do it now, Madalena. So on YouTube, you can find our episodes. We have social media channels a little bit around, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and so on. But so again, sharing our personal stories, it's also, I guess, a way to tell anybody at any age that if you're reasonable in what you're saying, in the sense that you know what you want to do and why you're here, you can really bring forward to the conversation. And it doesn't mean really, I understand, like, for instance, 14-year-olds are scared of going out there and protesting, maybe. but you can do something in your schools. You can speak to your teachers. You can speak with your parents and try to change things in your house in small ways. With my cousin a couple of years ago, I made a Christmas tree out of tuna cans. Now, I'm not saying people should do that, but that was fun for her to, just out of the fun experience, understand that we are throwing away trash in a way, and that could be causing something. So if you start tiny, you can go big. And that's something that we Rethinking Climate, we are trying to do. And I hope that what we do can inspire others to do it in their own way. The idea is to make it personal, because otherwise it's just the same thing over and over again. And it could get us far, but I think that the more diverse we do it, the more inclusive it could be for more communities, more people, more ages. I would imagine that 14-year-olds want to find their friends to do it together, and that's really nice. And then you have your university students who want to do it, and then 50-year-olds. It doesn't never really matter with age, but some people are maybe closed off because they think, how can a 50-year-old help a 14-year-old? They could feel like that. And that's not wrong. We all know that's not stopping anyone. We can all take part in movement, but if you feel like you could talk with other parents, if you're a parent, and do something with your fellows, then that's also something that I think, we need to find our own people. I think that's also something we forget. We also think that the movement is all together. Yes, but we can find our fellow people. And in my case, mine are Amy and Lena. So, and we hope to expand our short, small project.
Thank you very much, Asia.
Domenico, we don't hear you that well. There you go.
Oh, sorry, I had a technical issue. And if there are any other questions, even though we can go to the next
I'd like to respond, if I may.
Yes.
That I think it's initiatives like that like your podcast, that are examples of exactly what you're saying. So you're actually saying you appreciate that movement, and you're also doing that movement. And I acknowledge all of you for that, and I thank you for that. If I may, I'll just say Domenico and I do some sustainable Sundays and hop on. And I wasn't born a journalist or thinking ever of that, but it really is like the hour for us to use whatever we do have and make lemonade, right? So we've got this technology. It's amazing. Your energy, you're informing people, it's education. It's just, we just need to push it out there and keep doing it, but also actually activate people. So help all of us learn to use it a bit more, but use it to our advantage, not our disadvantage, but teach each other how, and show it in example as well. Like you pick up the phone and you push here, and then you do that, and it says watch party, and when you have time next time, write something, and then hashtag, and slowly, like little things like that we're all learning anyway. Being more forgiving, and so I think the multilateral approach, like, critical. We've got to plant seeds in the next generation. We've got to teach ourselves. We've got to go above us and learn the wisdom from the elders, but also share the wisdom from our perspective and help them, So it's all got to come hand in hand. But I think hope and optimism are critical in a time like this, when people are in fear, in uncertainty, and it's existential. And it's at a global scale like never before. So anyhow, it's like this conscious moment of, okay, how do we want to respond to this? And that's our responsibility. It's our ability to respond. And you were saying about the use of words. So being responsible is taking consideration for the impact of our choices. And it's what we choose for ourselves that also impacts the others and all life in the universe, no matter what we do, even if we breathe, and that's it. So the ability to sustain myself within a system of other humans, within a system of life. And I just think that there's a beautiful thing coming by coming together. And instead of running and racing like we were, we can walk in slow strides, because when we do it together, we disperse the responsibility and we can carry more. So taking that breath, not being afraid to take it, and trusting that every day we move mountains. We're like in light speed right now. And I think we're going to get there as long as we keep doing it with dignity and integrity. That's what I'm walking away from this really amazing session. Thank you.
Thank you, Sol. Domenico, can I add a brief thing? So one little note for those listening, we do everything with free tools. And I think that's very important for people not to forget that we don't use any for paid program. We managed to make the only thing we're investing is on the website, because we want to make it, you know, we want to still get out there. We want to make a product that will be listened at for those interested, of course. But otherwise, everything we film, anything we record, anything we edit, anything our social media, it's everything with free tools. And I think that demonstrates technology has gone far, where we have to be critical of the technology we use. We have to use it well. We have, you know, digital citizenship, but we can make use of it. It's there accessible for us to use. So anybody out there is also, you know, willing to try it out. And also another note that I've noticed about the younger community, it's about being courageous. So many, even at all ages, I don't want to, you know, limit this to the young. It's sometimes there's the sense that you can't really get out there and you can't really say what you think because you're quote unquote not an expert. And by the sense that what me and Amy and Lena always say, we're not experts, but we've studied, we've listened, and we're not here to preach. We're here to interview other people by still knowing that we have backgrounds in climate science, some more, some less. We have background in other things, and we just want to apply in our own way what we've learned and keep learning. Like Amy keeps saying, you know, the learning journey. And I think that's extremely fundamental what we're trying to do. And I recall during a training we were discussing with high schoolers, like, how can I get out there? Just stand up, go to your principal and ask your principal, what can I do? You know, being that kind of courageous in its understanding that we live in a world where luckily in some circumstances you can speak out, and we should make good advantage as long as we're polite, you know, as long as we do it in a way, of course, we're not trying to hurt anybody, but you can be part of your community. You can go up to your, I don't know, mayor and tell him or her, listen, you know, maybe what you're doing is not exactly the way. Let's talk about it. Can we talk about it? Then, of course, if things don't go the way you want, then the whole climate movement, you know, kicks in about why things are not moving forward, and that gets all political. But that's a different story. But it's still having courageous, you know, the courage to speak out, say something. That's something we do in our live sessions, in our episodes. So we do interview experts. We will maybe I don't know, look at apps and see how they work. And again, it's going to be critical. We'll just provide our personal opinion, but I think that's a demonstration of the way we are trying to be courageous in our everyday and trying to tell, I don't know, other organizations who've made these apps, like, I understand you were doing this. Maybe this is the way you can improve. So, and yes, so any tool and research, please send it along. It'd be very happy. Any feedback anybody has, we're more happy to take it in.
Ciao, buongiorno, Maria Grazia.
Buongiorno.
Ciao Giancarlo. Aspettiamo l'ospite di adesso. Adesso, Maria Grazia, in realtà ti chiederei dopo di ingaggiare se vuoi il dibattito, nel senso adesso c'è una speech di un ragazzo che si occupa di Just Transition e ti avevo invitato appunto come osservatore, poi dopo ci sarà la talk con Greenpeace.
Ah, ok.
Vediamo. Nel frattempo, allora, aspetta che forse sta scrivendo.
Eccoci,
Ciao Stefania,
ci
benvenuta.
risiamo.
Eccoci, stiamo aspettando adesso lo speaker, il ragazzo che deve parlare all'inizio.
Ok,
Vediamo. Nel frattempo, beh, non so se sì, vi siete già conosciuti in realtà a Roma.
sì,
Con noi c'è Maria
sì.
Grazia Midulla. Grazie. Allora, vediamo. Sì, aspettiamo. Nel frattempo qualche ragguaglio per la sessione dopo, che sarà con Greenpeace per Maria Grazia. Sarete tu e Luca Iacoboni, perché avevo invitato anche Katiuscia Eroe, ma non può venire, quindi il tema sarà appunto i sussidi ambientalmente dannosi. Faremo la talk in English, vi farò 3 domande giusto per ingaggiare la discussione, lasciandovi uno spazio all'inizio per un intervento di un po' più lungo, possiamo fare anche 7 minuti per ciascuno. Dopodiché, dopo i 7 minuti e le 2 domande che vi faccio, lasciamo il dibattito.
Ok.
Adesso aspettiamo, appunto, questo slot ci doveva essere un ragazzo di Young in realtà che aveva chiesto di parlare, però vediamo un attimo se... Ok, sta arrivando. Ok. È arrivato. Hello? Hi, Samuel. Can you hear us? Hi, Samuel.
It's good to be here, please.
Yes. Okay, we are gonna start because we are a little bit late. I will introduce the other speakers. There is with us Stefania Romano that will be also helping in moderating then the discussion, and Maria Grazia Midulla from WWF Italy. So if you want to proceed with your speak about just transition, so you can go ahead. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak here. I want to take this time out to appreciate the panelists, Domenico, and the rest of the team, Giancarlo Zelloni, Maria Grazia, and Stefano. It's wonderful meeting you all. My name is Samuel Adurki. I'm from Nigeria. I'm a climate change and energy advocate, and I advocate for just transitions and youth development and involvement in climate change and policy decision making. And I've been privileged to be part of this year's Paris Peace events, which held earlier this month, as a delegate. So speaking on energy mainstreaming and then ending speculative finance of of climate and green innovations, and also working on how to strategically implement the Paris agreements and then the Green Deals. We understand that there are different focal points and there are different objects of the Paris agreements, and the items that are focusing on the finance, on the adaptation and the mitigation approach of climate change requires that most people, most governments be up and doing and should take responsibility in financing more sustainable and just transitions from fossil fuels. And in this way, the importance of youth engagement and collaborative work in developing these action plans, either for government or for multinationals that are in the finance, in the sectors like oil, for instance, oil and gas, needs a lot of coordination and a lot of partnerships that should actually monitor and observe how true they are to the transition agreements. For instance, even more money actually, or more finances that are focused on financing fossil fuels can be diverted into clean energy, as we are seeing in some other organizations in some other countries, mostly developed countries across the globe. If such can be replicated in all underdeveloping or developing nations, I think the transition will be faster and more transparent. So it is imperative then that we all come together and place an action like we did at the Financing Commons Summit in the build-up to the COP16, such as these events we are having now. We can always gather policymakers, decision makers, influencers of decisions and policy on the table to discuss the best way and the strategic ways to push this forward. And this also allows for non-governmental organizations, civil society organization engagement, and youth participation in pushing forward the petitions to the COP presidency and to presidents and leaders of nations, ministries, and agencies that are saddled with the responsibility of energy transition. For instance, in Nigeria, we still have a little more to achieve in the energy transition. And when we're talking about energy transition, it's not financing projects that are just particular to using solar to light up lanterns and all that. We should talk about areas like clean cooking industry. We should talk into areas like transportation, which actually we see as the major sectors or major industries that contribute to the global warming and carbon combustions. So there should be also ways of investing and divesting into sectors like agriculture for climate change mitigation or adaptation in whatever way, using energy to power sustainable development in a more feasible and sustainable way. So I think at this stage, we just need to go beyond calling on beyond chasing shadows and into making strong decisions at this point. And towards the COP26, which is scheduled for next year, 2021, I think we have a long way to go in coming together, because 2021 is just by the way, and we need to come together and put forward some initiatives and make some really loud noise out there to organizations, to governments, in our local societies, gather together civil society organizations that are partaking and that are true to and are committed to the transition state of energy globally. So at this point too, I want to advise that if we can, on our own way, help to take initiatives such as education and awareness, primarily to young people, to them seeing that the future that is being affected is due to climate change, and that young people constitutes a large number of every economy and the population. So to say, like 60% of the generation can still be considered as young, ranging between, according to the African Youth Charter, they range between 15 and 35 years, while according to the Global Charter, they range between 15 and 30, or 18 and 30. So youth should actually, we should actually help to develop the capacities of youth in learning about alternatives to fossil. And then they should also start taking initiatives that can actually help them to scale solutions like innovations and their ideas and make it work, and also financing those initiatives. And in those little micro scales, those initiatives that are being financed can actually find expressions into the carbon footprints that are being set by countries and nationals. So on this table, there would be decision makers like ministers, as we all have. We can have organizations like National Renewable Energy Labs. We can have IRENA and international energy agencies and major organizations globally that are championing the cause of energy transition. We can have them to come speak. We can have top policy makers to come sit together and make decisions for the young people. And while making decisions for the young people, we cannot leave the young people out of the decision-making process. Rather, we should bring them to the table and make them more inclusive and participatory in taking actions and decisions. And we should actually see a way of making investors and all these organizations, like we have already the IRENA and the European Youth Network, are doing a lot in the SDG7 youth constituency, where I've been opportunity to showcase my initiatives and my organization's initiatives. We have a lot of young people that are being trained by organizations, international energy organizations like the REN 21, IRENA, and the lots of them. So we can have more civil society participation. We can have more engagement on financing youth initiatives, on educating youth and making them go into deep research and development on energy issues. And this is a way of being just to ourselves. This is a way of being fair to the youth and being fair to the future generation of the youth. And at this point, I think I can actually let you know also that we can all do this together if we only believe that we have a common problem and we work towards achieving a solution for our problems by setting targets for ourselves. We can have targets for the next 1 year, the next 5, 10, 15 years. And this is how we create a future, a just and resilient future for everyone, where no one is left behind in any way. So we should also look more into the economic aspects of things. While developing microgrid projects, we should consider that beyond these projects, or we should find ways where the projects can contribute to the economic lifestyles of people that are being targeted. For instance, if we have communities that are being targeted at development or at a pilot, we should consider the whole community approach of engaging everyone in seeing to the fact that they have to develop these plans themselves, because the plans should be for them. They should be able to take responsibility at maintaining infrastructures that are located and sited in their localities for development, so that resilience can actually be built over time, and it would not be at the detriment, economic detriment of investors and governments or personal organizations that are coming up with such projects in their community. So at this point, I should also talk more about the finance. Like recently, the European Green Deal that is being set out, we should actually push more to let there be a transparency in the process of financing clean energy and the other instruments that are entailed in the just transition measures. So at this point, I would like to drop my points. Where I am right now is actually very noisy. So I would like to drop my point and let the moderator take over. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Samuel. Thank you also for your insights and your points. And I want, before giving the floor to the audience and maybe to engage a brief discussion, I want to ask to you if you want to share with us your experience. You are the founder of Innovea. This is also an example of concrete activation of youth also towards a transition that you said that need to be just and need to foster also the fact that no one need to be left behind. So maybe if you want to tell more about your experience on that.
Yeah, thank you very much. As a youth and as an individual who is passionate about development and advancement, and I had background in the areas of science and technology as a physicist, electronics, and graduates with background in renewable energy, in artificial intelligence, solutions, environment physics, where I carried out most of my research. I've always tried to build a career around the environment, technology, innovation, and most importantly, the youth. So this has been my motivation at getting exposed to events that actually has helped me in developing personally and taking up initiatives for myself and the community at large. Saw me characterizing ionizing radiations from waste, and we saw that the volume of waste generated in globally actually can actually power uh, the entire global energy deficit. In what sense? If we choose to domesticate our waste through biomass, biogas, we can actually see that there's going to be a circular economy model that can be built in developing waste and turning it into usable energy. And we can also identify that there are important factors while addressing different issues that are related to people. Basically, for instance, in Africa, there's always a mindset that is negative generally, but we should look beyond the mindset. We should actually focus on how we can ensure connectivity of our initiatives, of our ideas, of our solutions with the audience. We have to work on the cultural psychologies of the audience we are targeting. We have to make them see reasons why it is important to take some decisions and take up some responsible consumption pattern. And while doing this, we should watch the scenario, because most of them might just get overwhelmed with the information. So we shouldn't give them too much information. Rather, we should act and take decisions and take initiatives. And when they begin to see the results of the actions and the initiatives and the decisions and probably policies that have been made, they can begin to see the effects on the environment, on the economy, on individual lifestyles and livelihoods, development, for instance, then they begin to get more interested in this. So the basic challenges we've experienced as youth initiatives locally and regionally is we always have little support from the government, of course, you know that, and that's why we are developing action plans and, of course, building enterprises as well as social enterprises, and as well as coming up with a non-profit that will not actually work as a government entity, but they work independently to solve community-based solution and problems and challenges. So I will encourage more youths to get engaged in such courses and then have a way of interfacing with the government at taking them to their words and holding them accountable and responsible. Like I used to say that at this point, youths have to step up the game. And according to the theme of this event, step up. So we can step up the game by actually taking the challenge to decision makers, policy makers, actors, and global leaders to actually make sure that the green deals are working for the green sector recovery. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Samuel. Thanks to you. And yeah, one of the goals of the social forum, Climate Social Forum, is to connect also and create what we say the virtual agora among different actors inside the climate change scenario: youths, experts, professionists, NGOs, and so on. And in fact, probably starting from today, we will foster also the discussion in the next tables of today. But today we have with us Maria Grazia Midula, that is from WWF Italia, and Stefania Romano, that is from DM25 and Climate Reality Project. And so also this environment now is like a way to foster this dialogue in order to find the ideas and proposal for a just transition. The topics of today, as we addressed, are more on finance and economy. And also you pointed out in your point, Samuel, the need to finance and to make investments in a way on and apply resources on, for example, you cited energy projects or energy transition activities and so on. And properly on that, I will open maybe the discussion, giving also the floor to Stefania and to Maria Grazia to have the opportunity also to discuss on this point, how we can mobilize, for example, finance and resources towards more innovation projects and sustainable projects.
I don't know whether Maria Grazia, you want to just talk fast. I would be very happy if you want to give an overview and then I just follow. You let me know, or I can give some hints.
I can say a few words because I was supposed to be in another discussion, and I felt myself in this one. But it's interesting, and I'm always happy to know somebody from other countries, especially from Africa. And I wanted just to say that we are discussing a lot about just transition and recovery plans in Europe, as you know. And I think there are different elements that we are discussing at the moment. And the reality is very different, but I think that you can find something that can be useful. First of all, on finance, yes, there should be some way of helping the communities, especially in regions and the countries in which that are mostly fossil fuel based. This is a part of what the Green Fund should be about, and this is also part about also international. It's something that international cooperation should help about. But the debate we are in now in Italy and in Europe in general is how to spend the money, because of course it is important to help communities not better directly fuel the initiatives from communities, but at the same time it's important to have a framework in which these projects happen in order to be sure that the money are not spent for spot initiative on one issue or another, but they are spent in order to create an environment, to create a system for the transformation, for the transition. This is the first issue. The second issue is of course that in some communities fossil fuels are important also because they employ people from the communities, and it is very important that the government should assure them an environment in which there could be possible for people to go from a job to another job, or at least to have a social insurance or some provision in order not to suffer too much. That's important, and I think for doing that, it's very important that there is a plan, there is a strategy, there is a vision. That's exactly what we are saying to Italy, to the government of Italy, and I think that's exactly what you could be asking from your government as a youth and as constituencies. But last but not least, I think that the initiatives from the bottom-up initiatives from communities are a key, it's very important that you see the transformation that is taking place, not as something that is happening in one field or another, in transportation and not in energy, and not in energy efficiency in buildings and so on, because this transformation is taking place on all sectors, in all sectors, and that's important. It's also very important that communities can bring in their culture, because sometimes the culture is a way of pursuing the objective, the goals, in a way that the market is not able to decide and understand. It's important so that all this transformation is done involving people, not on top of people, not on top of communities. That's something important for people in Nigeria, as it is for people in every other country. Over.
Thank you very much, Maria Grazia, for your point of view. And I want to ask also to Stefania, giving her the floor. Maria Grazia addressed more the necessity of finding how to spend in a right way the money. And to you, I want to ask how to avoid to spend bad the money. So
that's the I'm very much afraid that the national resilience and recovery plans are not going to be using the money properly, and that's, I think, a real danger for just for us Italians, but also, you know, just as for us as European citizens. And this is something that we have been discussing. We have had a very interesting discussion with Yanis Varoufakis on the 9th of October on the Green New Deal and the key messages, and Lorenzo Fioramonti was there, the former Minister of Education, and he was very blunt about that. We have to be very careful how we're going to be using the money, because most of this money are loans and we have to give them back. And we know that somehow our bureaucracy in Italy is very cumbersome, and also the number of the projects that we're going to be submitting are just not necessarily focused on industry and social requalification, rather on ordinary maintenance. So we have to be very careful, because I think that the clock is ticking, and it's really time to take action. And when we talk about financing, I was listening very interestingly to Samuel talking about his experience in Africa, and he was mentioning some agencies like IRENA. I was working with them very much when I used to work for the Italian Minister of the Environment. I was seconded to international organizations, and we have run a number of activities. So it was just saying, just highlighting the fact that we have to be co-creating action. And I like very much when he also said we have to be pushing more investments from the European Union, because they're doing a lot, but not necessarily enough, not necessarily they're up to the expectations. And Maria Grazia was saying very clearly that not only we have to be careful on how the money is spent, but also we have to be relying on international cooperation and on communities. Now, there is a point that I think it's core to the problem. We really have to be looking at the core of the problem. And the core of the problem is somehow the financial system. And we know that I mean, when we talk about the financial system, we talk about banks. Now, in 2019, the world's largest banks invested more than $2.36 trillion in sectors that governments and scientists agree are the primary drivers of biodiversity destruction. Now, banks play a key role in the financial system that somehow free rides on biodiversity. We have to say that bluntly. We are in the midst of a mass extinction event, which is termed as Anthropocene extinction, and that's the first of its kind that has been caused by humans. So humans have impacted nearly every corner of the planet, and scientists are saying it clearly. They're warning about biological annihilation. Now, the focus has always been put on governments and companies. They have been held as liable, but we have to be looking at the actors of the finance sectors, because they have largely eluded and evaded scrutiny. Now, why does it matter? It does matter because they are financing those activities that somehow cause biodiversity loss. Our human life, our survival depends on nature, and COVID-19 has shown it very clearly. I mean, nature underpins our health, our societies, our economies, and if we just radically alter nature, then we create the conditions in which pandemics emerge. So it's not that the environmental destruction is an unfortunate byproduct of economic developments. It's the other way around. It's just quite the reverse. So our abusive relationship with nature is contributing to a hole in the economy of $8 trillion, rising unemployment, social inequality. So somehow half of the world's GDP is in debt to nature, in the services that nature provides for activities that somehow, from which human beings are benefiting, and that are directly causing biodiversity loss, like fishing, mining, and the supply chain from retail or processing to trade commodities and construction. Now, there is a number of banks that somehow are liable, that are just the largest exposure to biodiversity risk, and they are in the US, they are in Europe, they are in China, they are in Japan. That they are responsible for 32% of their loans to infrastructures, 25% with metal and mineral mining, and the further 20% with fossil fuels. So it's to prevent extinction. I mean, we have to make sure that banks stop funding those activities, because somehow it's just the governments that allow banks to be running activities on, which are like food production system, forestry, mining, fossil fuels, infrastructures, tourism, the relocation of goods and people all around. Those are the primary drivers of global extinction. And Maria Grazia was saying it quite clearly before. We need international cooperation. Now, I have worked on behalf of the Italian ministry in that very field, because I was seconded to international organizations. And I was in Japan when there was the convention, the IT Global Biodiversity in 2010. But none of the targets have been met. Just 18 years ago, we had the World Summit on Sustainable Development. 20 years ago, we had the Rio Summit. Now, the point is that humans are consciously destroying the biodiversity and the ecosystem services that we rely on. That's absurd, but that's the reality. So clearly, current policies and conservation efforts are insufficient to protect our environment and sustainably make a sustainable use of nature. So what we really need is a transformative change all across economic, social, political, and technological segments. But the economic actors are like major, and they have to be rewriting the rules with responsibility and coming up with a new cultural somehow setup. So this is major, and this is something that somehow, I mean, has to be pointed out. We have to be. It's time for changing, reorganizing the system that we have, that has been producing this. I mean, pollution, climate change, and then the negative effects that we are experiencing, like COVID-19.
Thank you, Stefania, and thank you all for your insight. Now I will open the floor for also the participants if they have some question or they want to intervene into the discussion. Even if the speakers want to reply also to the current statements. And also, I just remember one very important thing. I mentioned about the Climate Social Forum, and one also of the goals of the Climate Social Forum is to foster discussion in order to propose ideas and like stimulate the dialogue on that. And for this, we have created these documents, these track documents, one of each of the main tracks that we call the climate action paths that we are addressing. So feel free to fill in your inputs and insight inside the documents. They are briefly structured with the 3 guiding questions that are the ones of the Talanoa dialogue. So where we are, the state of art of the problem, where do we want to go? So which are the goals to go beyond the problems, and how do we get there? So methodology and strategy, both for the local, national, and global level. So Giancarlo, you can open the microphone and also speak. So please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I've just sent a question. I read the question. There would be a need for reliable political partners in the institutions to ensure proper use of resources. This is the most important question, how to face this challenge.
Okay. Who wants to take the floor? We can make a round of intervention on that.
Can I start?
Go ahead.
Okay. I will just give you my own experience, because I have worked for the Italian Minister of the Environment for a long time, and I've seen setting up very many policies, frameworks, conventions all across and all around. So there is a lot of responsibility which has to do with the political setup and approach of the situation. But I was in Rio +20 in 2012, and I was listening to one of the major, I would say, player in that political player, I would say, Pepe Mujica, the former president of Uruguay, and when his speech was really astounding. It was really different, because he wasn't just saying, okay, we're just working on that, that's what we are doing, just kind of filling the forms with all of very good words. No, I was just saying it very clearly. I mean, we created a society which is not working, and when he's asked about what the solution is, I mean, he doesn't really have a solution. He says it just reminds us that somehow the economic development is useless unless happiness is part of the equation. So we're just pushing for economic development, forgetting that somehow we are happy when we have sound human relations. So the problem is political, but first of all, the problem comes from us. I mean, we really have to change the way how we have set up the societies. It's very simple, but it cannot be GDP, that will solve our problem. It's not technology that is going to be solving our problem. It's just us. I mean, we are consciously destroying the environment, so it has to come from us. But each of us, so it's politicians, it's bankers, it's artists, it's indigenous communities, it's poets, it's it has to be coordination, but we really have to change the approach, the mindset, the cultural, societal patterns. That's pivotal.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stefania. Also take the chance, if the other speaker want to make their statement. Samuel, if you want to add something.
There's nothing to add for now. I think we all spoke well, and we just need to go beyond talking, and we need to take actions, visible actions, measurable impacts, and making sure what we're discussing actually is yielding results for us. So beyond this, we should actually work on whatever it is we've been working on before, establish more partnerships, to foster development for the just transition, we should push for more actions, because if we keep pushing for more, then we keep getting results. If we don't keep pushing for more, we get less results, and we may not even actually totally maximize the finances that are around the spaces for the just transitions we're clamoring for. So it is important these actions keep growing, the voices keeps complementing the actions, and the two should be on the pari passu, how we can actually successfully get results for our advocacies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Samuel. Maria Grazia, if you want to add something.
Sorry, did you hear what I said?
Okay.
I'm sorry, but I cannot hear very well, so I couldn't hear what Samuel said. So go ahead.
Please let me just make this remark again. I said at this point we should just focus on how to actually bring our actions and our words into alignment, and the two should go in pari passu as to driving impacts and measuring impacts of our actions and our agitations, not just to the government but to the agencies that are in charge, the caucus, and then people that are actually the major decision makers, and they should be held accountable and responsible for the just transitions requirements. So doing, we can actually finally get results for our agitations and what we as environmentalists or as development practitioners have been working towards for a long time, so that our efforts are not jeopardized by indecisions. Because if we don't keep pushing, if we don't keep talking, then they begin to get relaxed, and then there's a tendency that our inputs are jeopardized, and then our voices are not heard, and then our actions are in vain. So in order to forestall this, we need to take more action to complement our words and our advocacies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Samuel. Maria Grazia, if you want to add something to the previous statements.
Yeah, it's difficult for me to come in because I really cannot get what Samuel is saying. There is a big noise. I don't know if I'm the only one who gets
No,
it.
it's a background noise, Maria Grazia, it's true. A lot of background noise.
Yeah, but anyway, I see that somebody is saying about the political partners. I think that's an issue in every country, and that's for sure. And that's where the civil society comes in, Samuel. I think that's precisely the role of civil society as a whole. So I mean, also it's. I think that the civil society globally can reinforce the action of civil society locally. That's also important. And I'm sure that the different youth movements like Fridays for Future and so on will help a lot on this. And but of course it means that making also connections and making sure that you don't go from unreliable partners or officials or systems to other unreliable people. That's for sure. Sometimes that's particularly difficult, and I remember a lot of negotiations about this issue, because sometimes what happens in the negotiation is that a sort of a patronizing attitude from the Western institutions, and that's something that cannot help civil society locally. So it's an issue that should be dealt primarily by local communities and civil societies, and then also with the help of the global civil constituencies and or even institutions. But if the local communities are not active, there is no hope. I mean, for solving the problem at all.
Thank you, Maria Grazia, and thank you for all the speakers. Now we are finished our time for this session, and we are starting the other session also with Maria Grazia. We'll reach also Luca Iacoboni of Greenpeace, and the topic will be how to avoid environmental harmful subsidies and stop them. So Maria Grazia, you're very welcome to stay here. Yes, Luca has just arrived. And thank you very much for this session. Now we'll stop for 1 second the live session, and we will go live suddenly with the next round. Parallelly, there will be another session on Article 6, where there is also Samuel as a panelist. So I invite Samuel to join the other room. And thank you very much to all, and let's stop for 1 second and reprise with the next roundtable. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Of course, Stefana, you also invited to stay.
Ah, okay, I didn't know that.
Ok. So, ora stop un secondo. Ok, allora